please don't upset me today, Samuel. I might have a bit of an issue, but I mean, I'm nervous.
Don't be nervous. We'll get to the starbase fine. You can go to the captain's party. You'll have a great time. You'll meet Shelby, and it'll all be good, right? And if people want Stuarts to have a happy day, click like, subscribe. It's a button as well. Or join our lives. Like tonight, our full review. We're going to assume you're all going to turn up. That's why Stuart is going to be maintain his structural integrity for his entire review. So turn up tonight, 10 p.m. GMT, 5 p.m. Eastern, for a full breakdown.
That's right. But until then, let's talk about the latest episode of Lower Decks, because that should make me happy, I think. Episode 5, yes. Embarrassment of the Dupler. I thought this one was a lot better than the last two. I rather enjoyed this one. This one should have been called The Trouble with Dupler, because it's very much just the Triples episode again. I thought the idea of him duplicating like that again and again and again, like, it was just stupid. And the fact that they were all sentient and they all were the same size. If they had got smaller, so there was one big one and then a bunch of smaller ones, and they just kept, you get little small ones popping up, that would have made a lot more sense, because, you can't create or destroy matter, you can just change it. So I thought that would have been an improvement. So that part of the story was the off-putting part a little bit, but the rest of it with the model, with Rutherford and Tendi was fun, and the whole thing with Mariner and Boimler was really good. And there's tons of references in this one again. Plus we see some old favorites. We see Captain Shelby, which, by the way, we need a Shelby coming to the rescue of Riker. Has their relationship improved now that they're both captains, or are they going to still be knocking heads? When they're the same rank, you know how it is. So, honestly, there was a lot of fun stuff in this one, and the Kurtzman reference was hilarious. Don't know if you noticed, Kurtzman was in this one. He was in the Pike wheelchair. I really enjoyed this one. It wasn't as good as the first two, I don't think, but it was better than the last two episodes. So how about you?
I think I liked it most out of the season. For just enjoyment factor. All the other episodes have had one storyline that's been distinctly less strong for me. And this is all personal opinion side, but I enjoyed every aspect of these stories just more. And I think together it felt like a more cohesive piece where each element connected in one or two ways. So the whole thing felt more full. The downside, I think, is that the car chase was too long. But once we skip out of the car chase, a lot of other good stuff happens. So it's kind of but also it'd allow us to see really cool visual treats and get a sense of what's it like to go through a space station. So arguably it's the journey around the journey. But I liked it. I think it also unfortunately shows that the teams really work better as Mariner and Boimler. They were built from the ground up in season 1 to be the duo, and so they've got a lot more of that chemistry. And we've seen that they've tried to go outside of those and to varying degrees of success, but as soon as they're back together, they gave them more screen time, they gave them more overall arc stuff, they gave them more, so it all felt more real and more full. And yeah, I was certainly waiting for the party to have a voiceover from one of the famous legacy captains or somebody. Yeah, I'm kind of blown away they didn't have a single voice cameo in the party. Literally anybody, any admiral from any show is kind of that's the sort of thing where one line of meaningless cameo is amazing. Have Ramon Chaev for 4 seconds. You have any admiral for one line would have been lovely. I mean, seeing Shelby is great, but get her back for a line. I don't know why you wouldn't.
We got our Acuna appearance. We were told that he was going to show up, and Acuna, he's not even in Starfleet. That's outrageous. So we got the outrageous Acuna. That was a moment that made me smile for sure. But yeah.
Although, given the actor was the one that told us he's going to come back and he didn't provide any voiceover dialogue, it's a bit of a red herring of moment because it was great, but I'm surprised we didn't get a single.
Maybe he DJs on the Cerritos in one of the last episodes.
Oh, a setup.
He actually has a line or two.
Maybe he has a crossover DJ with a Choo 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 band. The Choo Choo Girls. It's all going to come together. That's the season arc, Stuart. Both seasons will come together. I enjoyed it overall. It was fun. The duplicating thing is really silly and isn't logical, but also the idea of a Tribble being born pregnant is also silly. It creates more, so it was a fun enough concept and it allowed for enough fun middle moments for me to not be worried about it. And the resolution I thought was very logical and fun. So illogical, but constructed a self-contained, okay, I get this way.
Yeah, see, the Doppler thing was interesting because, yeah, you're right, tribbles are born pregnant, so they do explode in our planet, but they have tribble predators there that keep their numbers down, right? Could be that the Dupplers on their home world, there's something in the air, there's something that prevents that from happening in most cases. Once they get off their planet, due to whatever, there's no pollen or whatever in the atmosphere, that, the duplication thing's a problem. But
Well, it's like a Lara in Orville. Their gravity's so low that they have to readjust on Earth, and then humans go there and they get crushed. I mean, perhaps it's a gender thing that the females are extremely dominating and aggressive and mean, so that even if they duplicate, within 4 seconds they come back. Because the problem's only a problem if you don't know the solution. The solution is be mean to them. And potentially... And I think the way they play him as a character, he's one of the more prone to it characters. He says, I should be more assertive. So those that are more assertive surely don't have this issue. He just happens to be the ambassador for whatever reason. Or the liaison. So I think,
he actually seemed surprised that it worked when they were yelling at him. Like, why yelling? Like, so that was a little bit...
My impetus from that, though, and you sort of... I love the idea of him getting smaller. That would have been a really lovely joke, actually. That would have been very smart. I would guess that as he splits, his intelligence changes and goes down, potentially. And so if he's like the clone of a clone of a clone of a clone, he's barely himself anymore. That wasn't really in the story, but then why he wouldn't know the solution is because he's a 75th style clone. Which one, I didn't like in a small way that if he got off the ship, if he got onto different decks, then every deck would have to be recombobulated and pull up to the bridge to be recombobulated. They didn't kind of show that process of pulling everyone together, because they would have had like one Doppler on every deck, in every room, and they have to pull them together and yell at them. And how did he even get off the bridge? Just don't let him in the turbo lift. Because I don't think he's walking between decks, and you can't physically get from a deck to a deck. There aren't stairs. I don't know why they didn't just say, computer, lock down decks 1 to 2, mostly force fields. He ain't getting anywhere. So him getting around the ship was a little bit illogical, unless they'd originally been a pair like the Binars, and then they could say, oh, now he's lost the plot. So it's silly, but it's played in a fun way, and I like Freeman's approach in general. I think she's a much better captain this week, and she's balanced better, and it works enough for me. Whereas the God Ransom didn't.
That's a good point, actually. So I would agree this one is better than the Ransom one. I'd kind of forgotten what the first one was. I just remember that opening scene with the escape with the Cardassian and stuff.
Blinded by the light of the epic start.
But the Kayshawn episode was, I think, better than this one. I actually kind of like the way that they used the William Boimler thing to kind of get, as a plot device. That was great.
Simple and obvious, and like, oh yeah.
Although I think questions would be raised at some point, like, how are you here and the Titan's not? But whatever.
But if it's a party with 500 people.
True. Luna class and above.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. Luna's relatively middle high end. That implies this really is a high end. Although that would have been nice then, and I didn't even consider this, but we only saw ships docked at the station that are pretty low end. Why don't we see a Sovereign flying out the window? Like, if they're all here, that would have been the most obvious thing in the world. I guess they would have said, oh, it's the Enterprise, but it's like, just have a Sovereign, like, to have that be part of the pan, it's like the Sovereign.
You pan across the station and then see the registry of, like, the Sovereign, and then a zoom out, so you know it's not the Enterprise.
And Egomos could sell the lower deck Sovereign.
Yeah,
like, literally, making them money. But, small thing, I guess they all beamed there. Or maybe there's a party bus. Maybe they all came in a warp shuttle to the party bus.
We got a Jean-Luc Picard and crew reference. We deal with just as much stuff as they do. And we also got I once escorted the Enterprise out of dry dock. That was also another good reference. So, I mean... But yeah, the Mariner and Boimler one was good. I agree the car chase was too long. But some really good references, like in the bar. There's like scattered with references there. And also the shop that they were in earlier. But them dealing with their issues, and I love how Boimler's like, just tell me the truth then. Like, why are we dealing with this now? I've been back for weeks. Was good. At least that got handled finally. But Mariner seems like the kind of person that wouldn't bring that up because she doesn't want anybody to know that anything ruffles her feathers,
Yeah, for what it is, for such a small relative situation, it made sense to boil over in this respect, and the logical thing left behind it, it was very organic. and I do like the way it was acted at the end, being in the bar, and I'd rather be here, and because he did get to see the party. At the end of the day, he still got to see it. He didn't need to get drunk with people he didn't know, because as was shown, part of having a party like this is that they're all higher echelon. Him being one of the lowest ranked officers on the lowest ranked ships, that was just a moment in his face in the performance where he doesn't feel like he fits in, because he hasn't raised that status yet. You know, the other Boimler already the other Boimler's already shown to have more experience in the confidence wise, and I'm sure he's done quite a lot in the last few months. So he feels out of place because he hasn't reached this echelon yet. That's why he skipped the queue, literally and figuratively, by jumping onto his more advanced ranked other self. So I kind of like that sense of, I've seen the party, it isn't for me yet, I'll jump back to my friends on my lower end ship, which then becomes a really nice moment at the end where all of his actual crew, which are all at the same part of the totem pole, all go there. So I thought it was actually rather sweet for a comedy like this.
Yeah, well, he got into the party, and then the guy was like, "Hey, I haven't seen you," and he was talking to somebody else, and Boimler just looked sad because he had nobody to talk to. Like, he was there by himself, and that's the issue, right? So
he doesn't know anybody. He's not of this rank. He's not of these high-end ships. He's not connected in any way. I thought the Kirk and Spock bar thing was a little bit too much. It was that line of the initial setup was, but the payoff's nicer at the end. So I think it kind of builds into a better reference. But
I loved they were here sometime in the 2260s. I can't remember when, which was great. But to be fair, anybody could carve those names into the bar. And would Kirk actually do that as a captain in the 2260s? No. And that's obviously when he was a captain, because him and Spock were together. So anybody can carve that in and say, yeah, Kirk and Spock drank here. Oh, this bar's going to be, slamming now. I didn't get that. I didn't get any sense of deception from the bartender lady, though.
But maybe if that's one of your famous people stories that you've told for 120 years, you wouldn't give off any deception markers because you've told it hundreds of times. It's like a tourist destination.
Yeah. It makes people feel good for being there. So yeah. I was going to say that I think the bar stuff was well handled. I like the way that Boimler, a prune juice spritzer, first of all. What the hell? But the way he felt bad about leaving the party, but at the same time, because he kind of gives like would have liked to have been at the party still. But, his friendship with Mariner is more important. So.
But let's be fair. He had enough time to go and get selfies with the most famous people. Because she already went to the bar, already had some drinks. So it'd been at least 10 to 30 minutes. Because they'd also find her. I guess he could say, computer, locate Beckett Mariner. And also I appreciated that she said, I don't normally tell these things to people, but you're an exception. They double highlighted he's not my boyfriend, which I thought was quite funny. But they are clearly closer than most people, and that does allow for a lot of interesting stories in the future where this is the first person she can really open up with. And that might also be why she's going with her mum finally, because he's helping her to become more developed as a person, away from that recessed, repressed, insular character. Because is it a coincidence that Boimler hasn't been on the ship a year and a bit, and she got closer to her mum, and then when he left, she fell back on my mum's my best friend, because she learned how to trust people again, and now in season 2 she's got the mum as a friend, and then him, because she feels so much more balanced, even by the driving side, just a more well-rounded version of the character. So that's why I said I like this one, I think, the most, because everything felt more in balance.
That's quickly talking about the Rutherford Tendy thing. When I first saw that shot of the Cerritos, I'm like, wow, they really scaled down the detail for some of these animations. And then you see the decal come in, and it's like, oh yeah, there you go. That was awesome. And the fact that everything on the ship worked. As a model builder, I really appreciate that, because as you're building things, you're like, oh, just imagine little people in here, if ever got shrunk down in size, what it would be like to be in here. I got to make it detailed. But the little keys and the little warp core ejection and the little squeaky mousy voice for warp core ejection in 5, 4. I thought that was fantastic. And I guess Eagle Moss literally saved the release announcement for the Cerritos for the day of this episode, or the day before, because that's awesome. And it's an XL too. I saw it under Rutherford's arm. I'm pretty sure the Eagle Moss one's not going to be quite that big, but... And then just to follow up on that with the DS9 model, I like, that's awesome. It comes with little Jadzia and Esri.
And it's got a Quark's sign on it, because Quark's selling merch. Very clever, this one. Very cleverly calculated. Nothing felt too obscene. And yeah, the model was on the edge of being too silly, but that was the fun of it. Having an actual warp core is insanity. having actual phasers is insanity. But this is a mega future, like this is post TNG. Why wouldn't you? And the fact they can make phaser emitters that small, I mean, they're not really it's just a laser pointer that stings a little bit. But obviously from a CG point of view, I loved seeing. Then now we know where the warp core ejection hatch is.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
And if everything else is correctly to scale and to whatever, that's the whole point of the miniature. I wouldn't be surprised if that's actually the warp core we see in the show has a ring about it, has confusing stuff, but that's confirming just the inner ring is the warp core that ejects, more of a conventional one. So we're wondering, how is this big room going to eject? The answer is it doesn't. The core ejects like normal. Good, excellent.
And again, the Kinzinti in the bar, or in the mess hall. So Kinzinti likes hanging in the mess hall, I guess. But anyway.
And obviously we're going to get into the references because they zoom past 1 billion alien races, which is the epitome of what I say every single time a new season starts, and I did for Star Wars. You don't need to invent 50 new races that will be forgotten instantly. You've got a plethora of races from across the galaxy, across the timelines. Just go into the bank of them, draw them, include them, and that's what they did. And it makes the whole station feel so alive, rather than just random aliens that you will literally forget. But by seeing them, you're like, this is such a grand part of the universe. That's really great, and we'll get into that in our episode. But Stuart, I think that's about it. We've done everything. But we haven't, though. We haven't covered everything. Tonight we'll cover more. Goodness, tune into that, guys. My God.
So comment down below what you thought about this episode. Like the video. Click the notification bell icon to all. Make sure you're subscribed, obviously. And like Samuel said, we're doing the live full breakdown and review of this episode tonight, scene by scene. Well, not all the references. The references will be in a separate video, probably. But we're going to break it down, and that's at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 10 p.m. in the UK. So if you're able to make it, that's a great way to interact with us and to help support the channel as well, because you can super chat.
Yeah. And that super chat is one way to support the channel, which you love it because it's direct communication. But Patreon's a great way, or join the channel, which is near to the super chat button on the lives, or jump in on the PayPal. I was going to say Indiegogo there, we're not doing Indiegogo right now, are we? Or the PayPal at trekyards@hotmail.com, or just view them, because the views do help and they help the algorithm. And if you think if you like what we think, or just respect what we think, share the video and see who else would like it.
All right, so I made it through without duplicating, thank God. And I guess we'll see you guys tonight. So until then, I'm Captain Foley.
I am Commander Congress.
See you guys later.
Bye.